Now, Israel, listen to the laws and rulings I am teaching you, in order to follow them, so that you will live. Then you will go in and take possession of the land that Adonai, the God of your fathers, is giving you, in order to obey the mitzvot of Adonai, your God, which I am giving you. Do not add to what I am saying, and do not subtract from it. You saw with your own eyes what Adonai did at Baal-Por, that Adonai destroyed from among you all the men who followed Baal-Por. But you who stuck with Adonai your God are still alive today, every one of you. Look, I have taught you laws and rulings, just as Adonai my God ordered me, so that you can behave accordingly in the land where you are going in order to take possession of it. Therefore, observe them and follow them. For then all peoples will see you as having wisdom and understanding. When they hear of all these laws, they will say, "This great nation is surely a wise and understanding people." For what great nation is there that has God as close to them as Adonai our God is, whenever we call on him? What great nation is there that has laws and rulings as just as this entire Torah, what I am setting before you today? Only be careful and watch yourselves diligently as long as you live, so that you won't forget what you saw with your own eyes, so that these things won't vanish from your hearts. Rather, make them known to your children and grandchildren. The day you stood before Adonai your God at Horeb, when Adonai said to me, "Gather the people to me, and I will make them hear my very words, so that they will learn to hold me in awe as long as they live on earth, and so that they will teach their children." You approached and stood at the front of the mountain, and the mountain blazed with fire to the heart of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick mist. And Adonai spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no shape, but there was only a voice. He proclaimed his covenant to you, which he ordered you to obey, the 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. At that time, Adonai ordered me to teach you laws and rulings, so that you would live by them in the land you are entering, in order to take possession of it. Therefore, watch out for yourselves, since you did not see a shape of any kind on the day Adonai spoke to you in Horeb from the fire. Do not become corrupt and make yourself a carved image, having the shape of any figure, not a representation of a human being, male or female, or representation of any animal on earth, or representation of any bird that flies in the air, or a representation of anything that creeps along on the ground, or a representation of any fish in the water below the shoreline. For the same reason, do not look up at the sky, at the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything in the sky, and be drawn away to worship and serve them. Adonai your God has allotted these things all the people under the entire sky. No, you, Adonai, has taken and brought out the smelting furnace of Egypt, to be a people of inheritance for him, as you are today. But Adonai was angry with me on account of you, and swore that I would not cross over the Jordan and go into the good land, which Adonai your God is giving you to inherit. Rather, I must die in this land, and not cross the Jordan. But you are to cross and take possession of the good land. Watch out for yourselves, so that you won't forget the covenant of Adonai your God, which he made with you, and make for yourself a carved image, a representation, anything forbidden to you by Adonai your God. For Adonai your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. You have had children and grandchildren, lived a long time in the land, become corrupt, and made carved image, a representation of something, and thus done what is evil in the sight of Adonai your God, and provoked him. I call on the sky and the earth to witness against you today, and you will quickly disappear from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days there, but will be completely destroyed. Adonai will scatter you among the peoples and among the nations to which Adonai will lead you away. You will be left few in number. There There you will serve gods which are the product of human hands, made of wood, stone, which can't see, hear, eat, or smell. However, and there you will seek Adonai your God, and you will find him in the search upon you. In the Acharat Hayimim, you will return to Adonai your God and listen to what he says. For Adonai your God is a merciful God. He will not fail you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with your ancestors which he swore to them. Indeed, inquire about the past before we're born, since the day God created human beings on the earth, from one end of heaven to the other. Has there ever been anything as wonderful as this? Has anyone heard anything like it? Did any other people ever hear the voice of God speaking out of a fire, as you have heard, and stay alive? Or has God even tried to go and take for himself a nation from the very bowels of another nation, by means of ordeals, signs, wonders, war, and a mighty hand, an outstretched arm, and great terrors, like all that Adonai your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? This was shown to you, so that you would know that Adonai is God, and there is no other besides him. From heaven he caused you to hear his voice, in order to instruct you. On the earth he caused you to see his great fire, and you heard his voice, his very words coming out from the fire. Because he loved your ancestors, chose their descendants, and after them he brought you out of Egypt with his presence and great power, in order to drive out ahead of you nations greater and stronger than you, so that he could bring you in and give you their land as an inheritance, as is the case today. Know today and establish it in your heart that Adonai is God in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Therefore, you are to keep his laws and mitzvot, which I am giving you today, so that it will go well with you and your children after you, and so that you will be prolong your days in the land Adonai your God is giving you forever. Then Moshe separated 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan toward the sunrise, to which a killer might flee, that is, someone who kills by mistake a person whom he did not previously hate, and upon fleeing to one of these cities might live there. The cities were Betzir in the desert, in the flat land, for the Reuveni, Ramat and Gilead, and the Gadi, and the Golan, and Bashan from the Manasseh. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the people of Israel. These are the instructions, laws, and rulings which Moshe presented to the people of Israel after they had come out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan River, in the valley across from Beeth-por, on the land of Sihon, king of Emory, who lived in Heshbon, whom Moshe, the people of Israel, defeated when they came out of Egypt. And they took possession of his land, and the land of Og, king of Bashan, and the 2 kings of Emory, who were beyond the Jordan, toward the sunrise, from Arori, on the edge of the Arnon Valley, to Mount Sion, that is, Mount Hermon, with all the Arva beyond the Jordan eastward, all the day in the Dead Sea and the footsteps of Pisgah. Then Moshe called to Israel and said to them, Listen, Israel, to the laws and rulings which I am announcing in your hearing today, so that you will learn them and take care to obey them. Adonai, your God, made a covenant with us at Horeb. Adonai did not make his covenant with our fathers, but with us. With us. We are all of us here alive today. Adonai spoke with you face to face from the fire on the mountain. At that time I stood between Adonai and you in order to tell you what Adonai was saying, because on account of the fire you were afraid and wouldn't go up on the mountain. He said, Aleph, I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, where you lived as slaves. Bet. You are to have no other gods before me. You are not to make for yourself a carved image or any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, or in earth beneath, or in the water below the shoreline. You are not to bow down to them or serve them, for I, Adonai, your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents, also the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvot. Gimel. You are not to misuse the name of Adonai your God, because Adonai will not leave unpunished someone who misuses his name. Dalet. Observe the day of Shabbat, to set it apart as holy, as Adonai your God ordered you to do. You have 6 days to labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat for Adonai your God. On it you are not to do any kind of work, not you, your son, your daughter, not your male or female slave, not your ox, your donkey, or any of your other livestock, not the foreigner staying with you inside your gates, to your property, so that your male and female servants can rest just as you do. You are to remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Adonai your God brought you out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore Adonai your God has ordered you to keep the day of Shabbat. Chay. Honor your father and mother, as Adonai your God ordered you to do, so that you will live long and have things go well with you in the land Adonai your God is giving you. Vav, do not murder. Zayin, do not commit adultery. Chet, do not steal. Tet, do not give false evidence against your neighbor. Yod, do not covet your neighbor's wife. Do not covet your neighbor's house, his field, his male or female slave, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. These words Adonai spoke to your entire gathering at the mountain from fire, cloud, thick mist, in a loud voice. Then it ceased. But he wrote them on 2 stone tablets which he gave to me. When you heard the voice coming out of the darkness as the mountain blazed with fire, you came to me, all the heads of your tribes and your leaders, and said, Here, Adonai our God has shown us his glory and his greatness. We have heard his voice coming from the fire, and we have seen today that God does speak with human beings, and they stay alive. But why should we keep risking death? This great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Adonai our God anymore, we will die. For who is there all of humanity that has heard the voice of the living God speaking from the fire as we have and stayed alive? You, go near and hear everything Adonai our God says. Then you tell us everything Adonai our God says to you. We will listen to it and do it. Adonai heard what you were saying, and when you spoke to me, and Adonai said to me, I have heard that this people has said when speaking to you, and everything they have said is good. Oh, how I wish their hearts would stay like this always, that they would fear me and obey all my mitzvot, so that it would go well with them and their children forever. Go. Tell them to return to their tents, but you, stand here by me. I will tell you all the mitzvot, laws, and rulings which you are to teach them, so that they can obey them in the land I am giving them as their possession. Therefore, you are to be careful to do as Adonai your God has ordered you. You are not to deviate either to the right or to the left. You are to follow the entire way which Adonai your God has ordered you, so that you will live. Things will go well with you, and you will live long in the land that you are about to possess. Now this is the mitzvah, the laws, the rulings which Adonai your God ordered me to teach you, for you to obey in the land you are crossing over to possess, so that you will fear Adonai your God and observe all his regulations and mitzvot that I am giving you, your children, and your grandchildren, as long as you live, and so that you will have long life. Therefore listen, Israel, and take care to obey, so that the things will go well with you, so that you will increase greatly, as Adonai your God and of your ancestors promised you by giving you a land flowing with milk and honey. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear Israel, Adonai your God, Adonai is one. You are to love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your resources. These words which I am ordering you today are to be on your heart. You are to teach them carefully to your children. You are to talk about them when you sit at home, when you are traveling on the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them on your hand as a sign. Put them on the front of your forehead, around your forehead. Put them around the front of a headband around your forehead, and write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. When Adonai your God has brought you into the land he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that he would give you, cities great and prosperous, which you didn't build, houses full of all sorts of good things, which you didn't fill, water cisterns dug out, which you didn't dig, vineyards and olive trees, which you didn't plant. You have eaten your fill. Be careful not to forget Adonai, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, where you were slaves. You are to fear Adonai your God, serve him, swear by his name. You are not to follow other gods chosen from the gods of the people around you, because Adonai your God, who is here with you, is a jealous God. If you do, the anger of Adonai your God will flare up against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not put Adonai your God to the test, as you tested him at Massah, testing. Observe diligently the mitzvot of Adonai your God and his instructions, laws, which he has given you. You are to do what is right and good in the sight of Adonai, so that the things will go well with you and you will enter and possess the good land Adonai swore to your ancestors, expelling all your enemies ahead of you, as Adonai said. Someday your child will ask, what is the meaning of the instruction, laws, rulings which Adonai our God has laid down for you? And you will tell your child, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Adonai brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand. Adonai worked great and terrible signs and wonders against Egypt, Pharaoh, and all the household before our very eyes. He brought us out from there in order to bring us to the land that he swore to our ancestors that he would give us. Adonai ordered us to observe all these laws, to fear Adonai, our God, always for our own good, so that he might keep us alive as we are today. It will be righteousness for us if we are careful to obey all these mitzvot before Adonai, our God, just as he had ordered us to do.